here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Man, oh, man, what a show do I have for you today. What a show do I have for you today. Here we're going to start at the top of the hour with something that was said at the President's press conference today. And we're going to talk about the budgets. And we're going to talk about these other things. But trust me, it's going to be very, very compelling and interesting. Let's go to cut one, Mr. Producer. Go.
Rejected White House claims that the alleged wiretapping on...
By the way, let's start at the top. That's a German guy, if you haven't caught that. Let's try that again. Go ahead.
Rejected White House claims that the alleged wiretapping on you, on the Trump Tower, on Trump Organization, or on members of your campaign was that British intelligence was either responsible for it or involved in it. After these claims are rejected, what is your take on that? Are there other suspects, or do you think it was a mistake to blame British intelligence for this? And by the way, my second question: are there from time to time tweets that you regret in hindsight?
Very seldom.
Very seldom, and you would have, so you never would have wished not to have.
Probably wouldn't be here right now, but very seldom. We have a tremendous group of people that listen, and I can get around the media when the media doesn't tell the truth, so I like that. As far as wiretapping, I guess, by this past administration, at least we have something in common, perhaps.
With Merkel.
And just to finish your question, we said nothing. All we did was quote a certain very talented legal mind who was the one responsible for saying that on television. I didn't make an opinion on it. That was a statement made by a very talented lawyer on Fox. And so you shouldn't be talking to me. You should be talking to Fox.
So immediately, certain news outlets, including Real Clear Politics, say it was me. Now, I can understand that, being a certain talented lawyer. But honestly, I don't even know what this British intel thing is about. I never said it. He was talking about Napolitano, Judge Napolitano. Had nothing to do with me. And yet Real Clear Politics and others said it was me. Again, I don't even know what this British intel thing was all about. I wasn't paying any attention to it. But I just point this out to show you how corrupt and partisan and incompetent and diabolical the media in this country are. If you read The Atlantic today, and I know most of you don't because it's a left-wing rag, again, the focus on the president's tweet. And where did this come from, this knowledge about Obama ordering taps on his wires? It must have come from Mark Levin, gone through Breitbart, never came from me. How many times have I discussed this? My entire radio programs for the last 4 years are public. You can download them. My appearance on Fox and Friends Sunday morning after the president's tweet, when I was asked, do you think this occurred? And I said, I'm not Nostradamus. How would I know? The next day, the next night, I'm on Hannity. The media cannot help right now but lie and deceive and insinuate. And let me tell you why. Because I kicked him in the nuts. That's why. That's right, and I said it. And I am demanding that the media be held to account for the last several months of reporting on the so-called Trump and Russia ties. The question is, did they lie? Did they insinuate? Did they tell the truth? And the media will not take responsibility for their reporting. That's what's going on. They've been caught red-handed, and I mean red-handed. The New York Times, McClatchy, The Guardian, the BBC, CNN, and the rest of them. The rest of it is a shameful period. And there have been a lot of shameful periods, but it's really the lowest of the low for the media in this country to be taking a left-wing Democrat meme that somehow the Russians were in collusion with Trump, Trump's campaign, Trump's transition, Trump's dog catcher, Trump's whatever, pilot, I don't know. And they keep pushing that out there to delegitimize him, to delegitimize the election. And in my view, if the reporting is accurate, then the administration used police tactics. They go, oh, police tactics, can you prove it? I can't prove anything. I am proving you in the media to be the phonies and frauds that you are. There would not be congressional investigations today in the House and the Senate. There would not be statements being made by the chairman and the ranking Democrats on these committees, but for my show 2 Thursdays ago, I guess it is. Because somebody at some point with a national audience, with a national forum, with a microphone, had to call these people to account. And I'll tell you what caused me to really jump into action. When I saw what they were doing to Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States. Mr. Producer, open your microphone. I saw what they were doing to Jeff Sessions, that the man had to actually recuse himself from investigating this area because he had a meeting with the ambassador from Russia. Oh, holy smokes. 10 minutes before I got on the air, I told Mr. Producer, get ready, watch what I'm going to do. Is that not right, Rich?
That is correct.
That is correct. I had had enough of it. And so I pulled together not even all the media reports, numerous media reports, and I said, all right, let me tell you what the media is saying, what they are saying. And I put it together. And they have been on defense ever since. This is why they are obsessed with Donald Trump's tweet. They're not obsessed with actually finding out what took place now. Now they don't care. Now they pivoted. Now they moved away. They would prefer that there weren't FISA courts involved, and we don't know. They would prefer that 16 federal departments and agencies plus the NSA weren't involved in investigations. Now they would prefer, right? Back then they couldn't wait to tout it, or at least to leave it hanging out there, leave the cloud out there. It got so bad that Democrats were calling for special prosecutors. We need a special prosecutor to get to the bottom of this. And I kept saying, get to the bottom of what? And so now we get more yellow crap journalism out of the phony Atlantic paper, left-wing kooks and conspiracy theorists, hacks. Where did this start, this tweet with Donald Trump? It must have been Mark Levin's Thursday show. Couldn't be my show. Because I never said Obama was tapping Trump's wires or whatever, phone calls. But it doesn't matter. We know that he wasn't. That's pushed aside. Now we want to know all the rest. Now we want to know if all these reports in the past were accurate. So why don't the media want to know if they're accurate? All they keep doing is running around on Donald Trump's tweet. Donald Trump's tweet. Got it, got it, got it. Move it aside. Move it aside. I stick by what I said Thursday. But the media won't stick by their own stories. The media won't stick by the media. Now, they have a problem, ladies and gentlemen. After you're there, you hear them, you see them, you read what they say. Week after week, month after month, same damn thing. Democrats, reporters, Democrats, repeating each other, quoting each other. You got John McCain jumping into the mix, Lindsey Graham jumping into the mix. Well, now the question is really quite simple. It's a 3-part question. Were the media lying to the American people? Were the media insinuating things that they couldn't prove? or were the media telling the truth? Now, this is what we need to know. This is what we need to know. So today, even today, the media lie. Donald Trump's talking about Judge Napolitano, and the media say it's me. Now, as much as I like Judge Napolitano, he may be the senior judicial analyst at the Fox News channel. I am the greatest judicial analyst on the Mark Levin Show. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're going to move on shortly, but not just yet. Eli Lake over at Bloomberg.com always writes very intelligently, whether you agree with him 100% or not. He writes this, hot off the presses. Monday will be a moment of truth for the assortment of President Donald Trump's critics, who like to call themselves the resistance. FBI Director James Comey and National Security Agency head Admiral Mike Rogers are scheduled to testify before the House Intelligence Committee on Russia's influence of the 2016 election. Let's hope we get some much-needed answers on what the government knows about Trump's associates and their ties to the Russian government. Because since the summer, Democrats and their allies in the press have pushed the theory that the Russian state has undue influence over Trump and that his campaign may have colluded with Moscow to hack the election. It's a grave charge. In fact, he says, if true, the president should be impeached. That's what Eli says. But let's move on. Trump won the election, but the allegations about the Russia connection have hobbled his young presidency. General Michael Flynn, Trump's first national security advisor, is gone. Jeff Sessions, his attorney general, has had to recuse himself from all Trump-related investigations. There are now multiple probes in Congress. On top of this, Trump's Russia policy for now hardly looks like a quid to any Russian, hardly looks like a quote to any Russia quid. Cabinet members say the U.S. has no plans for lifting sanctions imposed on Moscow for its invasion of Ukraine. The Justice Department has just brought charges for the first time against Russian operatives for hacking Yahoo email accounts. Trump next month will meet with China's head of state. No such meeting has been scheduled yet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Russians now publicly worry that the political environment in Washington has scuttled Trump's efforts to reset the relationship with the Kremlin. Not bad for the Democrats, considering there is no evidence yet to support the central allegation against Trump, that he's either compromised by or collaborated with Russia, which is a core message the media have been pushing for months. 4 months. But it would be a mistake to conclude that all of this is good for the Republic, or for that matter, those resisting the Trump presidency. There are two reasons for this. First, there's a problem of overreach. If Comey and Rogers on Monday confirm what President Barack Obama's last director of national intelligence, James Clapper, told NBC News earlier this month, that there's no evidence of collusion between Trump associates and Russia, then the resistance loses credibility to go after Trump's abuses of power down the road. The resistance, I would argue, including the media. The media is going to look worse than it normally does. Either way, by the way. Either now covering up police state tactics or claiming police state tactics, but now having overreached, trying to reverse course. They're trying to reverse course. I won't let them, but they're trying to reverse course. Eli Lake goes on. But the bigger problem is the risk of normalization. To use the language of Trump's opposition, leaking the names of individuals currently being investigated by the FBI and the intelligence community is not unprecedented, but it's always dangerous. It's unfair to the targets of the probe, whose reputations are tarnished before the government brings a case in court against them, if it ever does. Also, counterintelligence investigations can change dramatically as new information comes in. The target today may not be the target when it's wrapped up. The risk of normalization is particularly acute when it comes to selectively disclosing details of conversations monitored by U.S. intelligence agencies, such as the leaks that forced Flynn to resign last month. Such leaks violate the public's trust in government eavesdroppers to not abuse their power to advance a political agenda. This is why there are strict laws prohibiting the public disclosure of wiretap information. It's why the intelligence community's supposed to take great pains not to distribute the names of American citizens who are caught up in surveillance of foreign targets widely within the government. It's why the House Intelligence Committee is now investigating how many times the identities of American citizens were unmasked in intelligence reports in the last 6 months of the Obama administration. And it goes on. This is very, very serious. The media can obsess over Trump's tweet. They can try and use it against people like me. It ain't going to work. The truth will win out. The truth will win out. They have built a case against Trump, against his campaign, against the transition, against his presidency, against his policies, trying to smear him over and over. I'm talking to somebody who supported Ted Cruz in the Republican primaries, but of course supported Trump come September to defeat Hillary Clinton, like millions and millions of the rest of you. But this has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing to do with that. I'm speaking as an American disgusted with the fraudulent media in this country that took the ball the Democrats threw to them and ran with it. And still run with it. And still run with it. So the question is really quite simple. Did the prior administration, in fact, use police tactics, as has been reported by the media? Or did the media lie over and over and over again in the aggregate to try and tie Trump to the Russians? Now, which is it? Either way, ladies and gentlemen, we never got the truth from the media, did we? No, we didn't. We never got the truth from the media. The self-serving leftist media humiliated itself. And I'm going to rub their faces in the Cheetos, and I'm going to keep rubbing their faces in the Cheetos. I'll be right back. So the Los Angeles Slimes, I didn't even know they were still printing, quite frankly. Most of these newspapers are bankrupt, not just financially, but in every other respect. So they leave a message with somebody in my office. We want to do a timeline on this Donald Trump tweet. I'm thinking, how about do a timeline on these various investigations that have been reported? Are they true? Are they false? What's going on? No. We want to do a timeline on the Donald Trump tweet. What would that take, 14 seconds? Anyway, we'll give Mr. Levin until Monday to call us. You know what? Screw off. Think I fear you? I despise you. But we will see what you print on Monday or Tuesday, and we will expose you. It just so happens I have more listeners than you have readers. Yes. The L.A. Slimes. You know what that paper's good for? Bird cages. Wrapping fish. Do they still wrap fish in newspaper? No. It would make the fish sick. So they don't even do that. That's why these old media outlets are dying. They're dying. They're leftists. They're Praetorian Guard. They have no interest in getting to the truth. None whatsoever. That's what we have found out, not only over the years, but certainly over the last few months. Certainly over the last few months. All right. Let's move along here. Something extraordinary happened on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, a.k.a. the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels. 5 originalists wrote an opinion. 5 originalists stepped out and said, we reject what that panel did, that 3-judge panel. This is a remarkable thing. I want to read this to you. It's from Law News, and I'm sure it's good because Law News is founded by Dan Abrams of ABC News. And let me say this to you, Dan, and I say this with the highest compliment. You've got the greatest toupee in America. I mean this. But that's beside the point. Robert Barnes, writing at Law News, this is extraordinary. He says, in one of the most ruthless opinions issued of fellow panel judges, 5 judges from across the political spectrum in the Ninth Circuit went out of their way to issue an opinion about a dismissed appeal. That is, this involves this executive order on immigration. To remind everybody just how embarrassingly bad the prior Ninth Circuit stay panel decision was on Trump's travel ban. The 5 judges included the famed and most respected intellectual among the Ninth Circuit, Alex Kaczynski, a Reagan appointee. By the way, he was appointed to the circuit when he was 32 or 33. And I was the first guy to vet him and sign off on him. He doesn't even know this. Little old me, the king of judicial analysis on the Mark Levin show. That's right, Kaczynski. The others included Jay Bybee, Consuelo Callahan, Carlos B., who is terrific, by the way, Carlos Bay, Sandra Ikuta. Nobody other than the original panel came to the defense of the original panel decision, a less than promising start for future approvals of district court interference in presidential immigration policy. In other words, these 5 judges wrote a brutal decision against that panel. And the panel defended itself, but none of the other judges defended the panel. What you are witnessing, ladies and gentlemen, and the backbenchers are all repeating it, is in fact a silent coup. That's right, I said it. And I've been attacked by the media day in and day out over this. And remember my first book, Men in Black. Remember that book. Let's continue. The language of the opinion was almost Scalian. The 5 Ninth Circuit judges noted their obligation to correct the manifest errors so bad that the fundamental errors confound Supreme Court and Ninth Circuit precedent. The district court questioned any judge issuing a nationwide TRO without making findings of fact or conclusions of law on the merits of the matter and conducting published opinions on seminal matters of national security based on oral argument by phone involving 4 time zones. Aside from the procedural defects of the process, the 5-panel jurists then noted the deep legal in other words, what they're saying is, you didn't even give this a serious hearing. You didn't really look into the facts. You didn't really look into the law. The litigants weren't even in the courtroom. You were in such a rush to overturn what Trump had done. That is, to uphold what the knucklehead in Seattle did, that district court judge, that you didn't even go through the normal processes to do it. You were in such a race to condemn it. They go on. Aside from the procedural defects of the process, the 5-panel jurists then noted the deep legal problems with the panel's order. It's ahistoricis. I can't even pronounce this. In other words, it's atypical from a historical perspective. It's abdication of precedent, and its usurpation of constitutionally delegated presidential rights. Mirroring much of the Boston judge's decision, the 5 judges then detail and outline what other critics, skeptics, and commentators have noted of the prior panel decision, including critical commentary from liberal law professors, such as Jonathan Turley, Alan Dershowitz, and Jeffrey Toobin. Is that clown a law professor? I know he's on CNN. The original 3-judge panel neglected or overlooked critical cases by the Supreme Court. And they're quoting now, and by our making clear that when we are reviewing decisions about who may be admitted into the United States, we must defer to the judgment of the political branches. That's a quote from the Supreme Court. A particular note, the 5-panel judges note how the 3-judge panel decision, in compounding its omission of Supreme Court decisions and relevant sister circuit precedents, also, quote, missed all of our own cases on the Ninth Circuit on the subject. The 5 judges conclude the panel engaged in a clear misstatement of the law, quote unquote, so bad it compelled vacating an opinion usually muted by a dismissed case. The 5 judges note some of the absurdities in the original 3-judge panel decision, claiming a consular office must be deferred to more than the President of the United States, claiming First Amendment rights exist for foreigners when the Supreme Court twice ruled that's not the case. The claim that people here could claim a constitutional right for someone else to travel here, a decision specifically rejected by the Supreme Court just last year. An analogous Trumpian kind of immigration exclusion was uniformly approved by circuit courts across the country in decisions issued between 2003 and 2008. The president's lawyers aren't stupid. They're among the smartest people in the lawyers in the country. They've looked at these past executive orders. They've looked at the Supreme Court decisions. They've looked at the circuit decisions. Too damn bad the judges don't. As the 5 panelists conclude, the overwhelming precedent and legal history reveals a court simply cannot, quote, apply ordinary constitutional standards to immigration policy, unquote. And the 5 judges didn't quit there. They go on to identify other obvious errors. As the 5 judges noted, the 3-judge panel hid from the most important statute, and I mentioned this at some length at the time, too. Noting the 3-judge panel regrettably never once mentioned the most important statutory authority, Section 1182F of Title 8. Additionally, the 3-judge panel, which gives the president the authority in virtually every circumstance to limit, to control, to manage, to stop immigration. Additionally, the 3-judge panel failed to even note the important presidential power over immigration that all courts, Congress, and the Constitution expressly and explicitly gave him in all of its prior precedents. Unsatisfied with that harsh condemnation, the 5 judges go even further. The judges concur with the Boston judge. Remember, there was a Boston District Court judge that threw it out and made all the rational arguments based on the Constitution, the statute, and judicial precedent, and said, get out of my courtroom. The judges concur with the Boston judge's understanding of rational basis review and condemn the Seattle judges and the 3-judge panel's misapplication and elemental misunderstanding, hold on here, of what rational basis is. As the 5-judge noted, quote, so long as there is one facially legitimate and bona fide reason for the president's actions, our inquiry ends. The issue is whether a reason is given, not whether a judge likes or agrees with the reason. That means the executive order sufficed, and no further consideration of the reasons for Trump's order were even allowed. The 5 judges still weren't finished. Next up, the ludicrous suggestion the president had to produce classified and national security information to explain and explicate publicly all the empirical reasons he felt the order needed to satisfy their rationales. As the 5-judge panel note, judges are not New York Times editors here to substitute for the president at their unelected will. A gavel is not a gun. A judge is not the commander-in-chief. And again, the 5-panel judges noted the Supreme Court specifically condemned just this kind of demand from judges, demanding classified information to second-guess executively privileged decisions. The judges noted, court does not have to come forward with support. The president does not have to come forward with supporting documentation to explain the basis for his executive order. And the panel wraps up its ruthless condemnation of its fellow 3-panel decision by noting their errors are, quote, many and obvious, unquote, including the failure to even apply the proper standard of review. As the 5 judges wisely noted, we are judges, not platonic guardians, and the great losers of the 3-panel decision are those that believe elections matter and the rule of law deserves respect, as both were sacrificed for result-oriented judges who ignored the law and evaded the historical precedent to try to reverse the policy outcome of the recent election. This is written by Robert Barnes of California. He's a trial lawyer. Now, it's worse than this. So the president's lawyers rewrite the executive order. It is legally bulletproof. Absolutely legally bulletproof. They drop a country. The word Muslim isn't mentioned in any religious context. They cite to the necessary citations, and it is shot down by 2 judges. One in Hawaii, a former classmate of Barack Obama's, and one in Maryland. 2 Obama appointees who abuse their office, who abuse the Constitution, who've endangered this country, who have taken steps that are absolutely deplorable and unconscionable. And they are applauded by the liberal media. And they are applauded by the ethnic front groups. And they are applauded by attorneys general throughout this country representing various states. You know what this is, ladies and gentlemen? A rogue judiciary. You know what else this is? Tyranny. If you cannot rely on judges to be judges, then we're no better than any third world banana republic. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
We're rocking and rolling tonight. It's Friday. Most hosts kick up their feet, sip a Coke, look at a website, go down the stories, first the left column, then the center column, then the right column, laugh at their own ingenuity. Tell the same one-liners over and over again. We kick butt 5 nights a week. That's what I do. I wish this bag under my eye would just go away. If that sounds like you every morning, you're not alone. Bags and puffiness under the eyes are a problem for millions of American men and women. Unless you use Genucel, the plant stem cell treatment from Chamonix, then you'll have no bags and puffiness. Listen to Susan from New Jersey, and here's what she wrote. I've been using Genucel for a couple of months. The puffiness around my eyes is gone. Even the crow's feet and small lines have disappeared. I love your product. Not only Susan, folks, my mother loves Genucel. My mother-in-law loves Genucel. My friend, the cardiologist, Teddy, he loves Genucel. They all use Genucel. I'm not kidding. They all use Genucel. And the results are incredible. And with its instant effects, you'll see results in the first 12 hours or your money back. Call now, and you'll save big on Genucel's risk-free limited-time offer. Call 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. Plus, right now, during the Chamonix Spring Clearance Event, Chamonix will give you an instant $50 coupon while supplies last. $50 coupon while supplies last. Don't wait. Call 800-SKIN-604, 800-SKIN-604. That's 800-SKIN-604. Now, we've been waiting for corrections from the Associated Press, from the Washington Compost, now Real Clear Politics, and they're never forthcoming. They're never forthcoming. Well, that seems to be the way it works. All right, let us check out our call screen. I'm trying desperately. Hold on, everybody. Here we go. Got it. By the way, before we do that, I've talked at length about the media. I've talked at length about these judges, about these intellectually corrupt, result-oriented judges. What do they have in common? What's the common theme? What's the common theme with the media today and the judiciary today? That's not to say we don't have some good judges and some good reporters. The problem is the word some, not most. There's some. The common theme is the progressive ideology. It is corrupting. It is destructive. It is dishonest. Whether it's applied in the media, which it is, whether it's applied by the courts, which it is, whether it's applied by legislators, which it is, the bureaucracy, presidents, it is. It's a dishonest, corrupt ideology, and that's what these have in common. That's what they have in common. Let us go to Susan, Charlotte, North Carolina, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Hey, Mark. I keep waiting for you to mention during all the confirmation hearings, the Democrats kept pounding that same drum about the Russians. everybody in the confirmation, they asked every one of Trump's nominees about Russia.
What about, honestly, I didn't watch everyone. I didn't have time. What did they ask them about Russia?
They kept asking if they had any ties to Russia. Did they know if Trump had ties to Russia?
Interesting.
All of their questions, I watched almost every confirmation hearing, and they just kept pounding that drum. Then they would go out on the Senate floor, I watched the senators, and they would do the same thing.
Let me ask you a question. Can you name the United States senator who did, in fact, collaborate with and conspire with the Russians in a presidential election? Can you name that United States senator?
No.
He ran for the Democrat nomination for president in 1980. Does that help?
No, was it Kennedy?
Kennedy. So we have an example of a man who collaborated with the Russians, with the KGB, through a friend of his, a former senator, John Tunney of California. Collaborated with the Russians to defeat Ronald Reagan in 1984, and he collaborated with them in 1983. Our wonderful friend, Professor Paul Kengor, exposed this whole thing. So we have a case, and it's a Democrat, and it's a liberal, and it's, quote-unquote, the Lion of the Senate. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Let's jump into this budget, and I promise to make it interesting. I was stunned today, ladies and gentlemen, absolutely blown away. There was actually a good editorial in the Wall Street Journal. And it puts things in perspective in ways I've been trying to put it in perspective as well, with plunder and deceit and so forth, on the size of the federal budget, the size of the debt, and that what Donald Trump is proposing is really important. But it's minuscule. It's minuscule. Because it only focuses on discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is a relatively small percentage of overall spending. The federal government is in the business, ladies and gentlemen, of redistributing wealth through entitlements. That's what it does. The overwhelming majority, the vast majority of funds are used to redistribute wealth. And they point this out in this editorial. They say President Trump's initial budget for fiscal 2018 is a public service, if not exactly in the way he intends. Its main virtue lies in showing voters the painful trade-offs to come if the U.S. doesn't do something to control entitlement spending. Now, this is, by the way, interesting coming from the Wall Street Journal circle nerds, because every time we get to the point of the debt ceiling, they attack any conservative that says we need to use the debt ceiling to try and get entitlement spending under control and other spending under control. And, of course, the circle nerds over there at the Wall Street Journal, including Paul Gigolo, those guys, they're undermining the conservatives, the fiscal conservatives. But let's go on. The skinny budget, so-called because a new administration needs time to offer more details, is being denounced far and wide for cuts to domestic non-entitlement programs. And, by the way, by Republicans. Because Republicans are not fiscal conservatives. Republicans don't believe in limited government. They're frauds. I'm sorry, it's just true. Just remember, under Obama, for most of his presidency, there was a Republican House of Representatives, and the spending bills are supposed to come out of the House of Representatives. In broad outline, the White House wants to add $54 billion in budget authority for defense, offset by $54 billion in cuts to every domestic department, save Homeland Security and Veterans Affairs. Critics are portraying these domestic cuts as shocking, while Mr. Trump is advertising his defense increases as the largest in history. They're both wrong. The annual federal budget is now more than $4 trillion, so the White House is proposing to shift a mere 1.35%. 1.35% to defense from other priorities. That's it. The proposal does represent a sharp change in priorities after the past 8 years when Barack Milhouse Benito Obama squeezed defense in favor of domestic accounts. Defense spending has fallen to about 3% of the economy from 4.7% in 2010. You know, I've said this before, so let me say it again so the media can repeat it. Barack Obama did more damage to the United States military than Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea combined. His slashing of the United States military, our Air Force, our Navy, our Army, our Marines, our Coast Guard, his slashing of the United States military is so bad and was so bad. I'm just saying that he did more damage to the United States in that regard than our enemies could possibly have done. Now, they go on. The proposal does represent a sharp change in priorities after the past 8 years, which we just mentioned. Domestic discretionary spending boomed under Obama until the GOP Congress began to rein it in after fiscal 2011. The number of full-time equivalent federal employees increased even with the GOP limits to an estimated 2.137 million this year from 1.978 million in 2009. It's incredible. The notion that this is a wholesale, much less cruel restructuring of the federal government is a fantasy that only Washington would attempt to promote. Take the defense increase, which is welcome, but not even close to Ronald Reagan's buildup. The proposal is a 10% increase over the 2018 budget cap set by the Budget Control Act. But it's only 3% about what Barack Obama proposed in his final budget, as he tried to neutralize the defense issue during the presidential campaign. Most of this money will meet urgent needs and operations and maintenance to keep planes flying and troops trained and moving. A serious defense budget that begins to meet Mr. Trump's pledge to build a 350-ship Navy will have to start with the fiscal 2019 budget expected in May. In other words, it's not a 10% increase. It's really a 3% increase, and that just maintains sort of what we have. We need a massive increase in defense spending. Massive. As for cutting domestic non-entitlement programs, it's hard to argue that the federal government couldn't use a top-down scrub. Would the American people even notice if the Agriculture and Labor Departments had to cut their budgets by 20.7% or Commerce by 15.7%? Then again, the specific spending proposals are a combination of the sensible and head-scratching. The White House wants to cut $5.8 billion from the National Institutes of Health to $25.8 billion, which is bad policy and puzzling politics, writes the Wall Street Journal. Spending on medical research, especially in this era of biological breakthroughs, is one place where government meets a need the private sector can't entirely fill. There's also bipartisan support for NIH, so Congress will spend more anyway. On the other hand, the White House is right to want to save $3 billion by defunding the Community Development Block Grant Program at Housing and Urban Development. This is a political slush fund for developers and progressive activists that has spent $150 billion since 1974 with little community development. Mr. Trump, they write, is also picking fights with some of his political opponents by proposing to zero out such long-term untouchables as the Public Broadcasting and National Endowments for the Arts and Humanities Department. The programs are small relative to the $4 trillion budget, but it's fair to ask if taxpayers should still have to subsidize PBS in an age with hundreds of cable channels and social media networks and Levin TV and CRTV. Oops, I just added that. Every program should have to defend itself against, say, grants for Alzheimer's research. A good political rule for conservatives is if you're going to propose cutting a program, you might as well try to eliminate it. So, as you can see, this is actually a very, very good editorial for the Wall Street Journal, which is always backing the establishment and the rhinos and always backing, the debt ceiling increases. What are you going to do? You're going to go broke? Of course, we wouldn't go broke, but... So they do not have the political will, the circle nerds at the Wall Street Journal. They do not have the political will when the time comes, when we're at the precipice legislatively, to press the case. But when it really doesn't matter, they're pressing the case. And it's important that case be pressed. So we're not only not addressing entitlements, which the trustees of Social Security and Medicare say are going to go broke. And each year that goes by makes it increasingly more difficult for younger people to cope with it and to find a way out of this. In other words, leave the people who are on it alone, leave the people who are almost on it alone, maybe people 50 and under. Something has to be done, or they're going to have nothing. Nothing. And there'll be a massive debt on top of it, unfunded liabilities. And yet nothing's done about it. And so 1.35% of the federal budget is really being moved. And you would have thought something horrific was happening, because this is how it works with the progressive media, the progressive Democrats. This is how it works. And you have all these phony front groups, these left-wing front groups. They have employees. They expect grants. They expect money to be redistributed from you to them every year, year in and year out, without a second thought, and with increases. Now, we had a caller last night. And he said, look, cut, but what the hell are you cutting the Meals on Wheels for? What are you cutting Meals on Wheels? I almost said Wheels on Meals, but I don't know what that is, actually. And so there's a fella, Eric Sherman, in Forbes magazine, who takes this on. He says, liberals, stop saying that Trump will kill all Meals on Wheels. He says there's much about the Trump administration's actions and decisions that could reasonably concern one. The latest block of information to digest has been the budget blueprint, which is an unrealistic fiction of what the country needs and where to most effectively spend money, he writes. Criticism is fine and necessary. However, there's a tendency for people who oppose Trump, and sadly for journalists covering the administration, to jump into every utterance and decision with, as public policy Spinal Tap think tank would say, the dial turned up to 11. A clear example is the claim in some media outlets that the proposed budget would kill Meals on Wheels. The relevant Department of Housing and Urban Development section of the budget contains the following language, quote, eliminates funding for the Community Development Block Grant Program, a savings of $3 billion from the 2017 annualized CR level. Now remember, we just talked about the Community Block Grant Program and how the vast majority of that is really a sop to left-wing front groups and developers. The federal government has spent over $150 billion on this block grant since its inception in 1974, but the program is not well targeted to the poorest populations and has not demonstrated results. The budget devolves community and economic development activities to the state and local level and redirects federal resources to other activities. That's a quote. Then the fellow writes, Meals on Wheels, a program that supports the delivery of meals to seniors who cannot afford food or cannot prepare it, started in Australia and has been in the United States since 1954. The program serves 2.4 million seniors every year and does get funding from the Community Block Grant Program. But the situation is complicated. And saying that the budget eliminates the Meals on Wheels program is factually incorrect. According to the Meals on Wheels annual IRS filing for 2015, it is not a government program. Approximately 3.3% of its funding, now this is updated in a moment, but 3.3% of its funding comes from government sources. Most is from corporate and foundation grants, with individual contributions the second largest source. Government grants are actually the fifth largest source of revenue. If the portions of block grants were eliminated, the program wouldn't suddenly disappear. But the organization says that it already cannot keep up with growing demand from seniors who need help. In addition, Meals on Wheels passes funding down to 5,000 local groups that provide food, and they additionally might be affected by the funding cut. Will there be consequences for the program and others? Obviously, of course. However, resorting to hysteria is dangerous, and that is happening both among many on the political left and some media outlets. Such statements can make valid criticism look uninformed and foolish. Now, he's updated this. A number of readers have written in after seeing a note on the Meals on Wheels site that said 35% of funding for the program comes from federal sources. That is correct, he writes. Only those sources are not the ones in question here. There is an umbrella Meals on Wheels organization. It receives 3.3% of its funding through the Community Development Block Grant Program. If this is cut, as proposed in the Trump budget, then that amount of funding to the National Meals on Wheels organization will be cut. He's saying that's what they're talking about, cutting that 3.3%, not the rest of it that comes from other government programs and appropriations and so forth. But most of you wouldn't have known that, would you? He says the funding for under the Older Americans Act, Title 3C, that's administered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Those aren't the funds that are under question. Those funds aren't in question. So I wanted to answer the gentleman as it was sitting out there. Now, what about Sesame Street? Now, ladies and gentlemen, several years ago when Sesame Street came up again, because this is what PBS does. It uses Sesame Street, or it did, as a justification for all of its bloated salaries and so forth. I said I will put together an investment group and buy Sesame Street. It's a cash cow. It's a cash cow. I will buy Sesame Street with a group of others, and we won't run any commercials. We'll in fact, I could put it on Levin TV, or we could put it on, at the time I said, we'll just put it on a cable network or what have you. Because the merchandising alone is worth millions, tens of millions of dollars. Well, nobody took me up on that. Now, I want to get into Sesame Street and Big Bird in just a minute. You need to know these things because this is the stuff they flop out there when we try and save the country and make sure that our children and grandchildren don't sink in debt as they're going to if we don't do something about this. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Big Bird. Over at Investors Business Daily, as night follows day, defenders of big government trotted out Sesame Street's Big Bird as the poster child of President Trump's terrible spending cuts. The Daily Beast story on Trump's budget proposal to cut taxpayer funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting features an axe-wielding man about to chop Big Bird's head off. Politico has a story titled, Can Big Bird Survive Trump? In a Jimmy Kimmel Live segment mocking Trump's budget, Donald Trump fires Big Bird. Well, let's take a look. Last year's Sesame Workshop had $121.6 million in revenue. Of that, $49.6 million came in distribution fees and royalties, and $36.6 million in licensing of toys, games, clothing, food, and such. In 2014, only 4% of its revenue came from government grants. Despite being a taxpayer-supported nonprofit, Sesame Street Workshop pays its top executives fabulously well. According to tax filings, the most recent of which covers 2014, then President and CEO Melvin Ming was paid more than $586,000 in salary and benefits in the 9 months before he retired, which included a $37,500 bonus and $18,700 in benefits. This year, the year before, rather, Ming cleared $672,391 in salary, bonuses, and benefits. That's 5 times the average pay for CEOs at nonprofits. The average compensation for the other 10 officials at Sesame Street Workshop in 2014, the average was a handsome $382,135, 6 times the median household income in the United States. The biggest winner of all in the Big Bird sweepstakes was Sesame Street's head writer and Muppet performer Joseph Mazzarino, who from 2012 to 2014 made a total of more than $2.2 million. Oh, Big Bird has laid a big turd. I'll be right back. For a month? That's the report. I know, you can't trust the reports, but can you prove it, Mark? Can you prove it? Anyway, the media is reporting it, so I can't. Without his family. Without his wife. Is that normal? I'm just asking. To be in Tahiti alone? What are you implying, Mark? I haven't implied a damn thing. I'm sure CNN's going to get right to the bottom of this. Let me suggest that the gaggle of Washington Compost reporters who've been chasing down Steve Bannon's garbage collector and his utility bills and his landscaper and his ex-wives, maybe they should take a little trip to Tahiti. They might actually enjoy that. And find out what the former president, Barack Milhouse Benito Obama, is up to. I think that's very peculiar. Furthermore, another news report, I know we can't trust it. No, I can't prove it, but it's a news report, says that the Obamas are getting $60 million to write a book. Each of them write a book about themselves. I'm sure that'll be painful. I, me, I. Anyway, well, when's he going to write it? When's he going to write? Is he writing it in Tahiti? What a scam. What a complete scam, these some of these book deals for people like this. It's just a way to funnel millions and millions of dollars into them. And guy's going to have 3 autobiographies, one dumber than the next. I wonder if a Marxist will write this one. Well, if he writes it, I guess the Marxist will have written it. I don't know. All right, I want to tell you about something that's near and dear to my heart. I want it to be near and dear to your heart. CRTV, Conservative Review TV. That is the new conservative network. We're not fair and balanced. We're 100% pro-American, 100% conservative, 100% patriotic. So we don't bring in morons from prior administrations who say stupid things and say, see, we're balanced. No, we don't waste our time. And we don't want to waste your time either. If you want to hear something that's reinforcing of your principles and your values and your beliefs, you want to hear something and you say, you know what, that was worthwhile. I hope you'll join us. I do my own program on CRTV. It's called Levin TV, oddly enough. We started with Levin TV, and it became so popular we've expanded this into a network. And so you can watch the great Michelle Malkin. You can watch the great Steve Crowder. You can watch the great Steve Deace. And we have more coming. I can't announce it, but I'm excited. And we have wonderful platforms, too. So I want to offer you this while the time lasts. 1 week trial free. So you don't even have to take my word for it. Just check it out. And this weekend is the perfect time to do it. 1 week trial free. And then you can decide if you want to join us. Call 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. Our folks are there right now. They're extremely helpful. And they'll walk you through it. They'll tell you how it works. And you can start your free 7 days this weekend. Also, I want to make another offer. If you're a firefighter or in law enforcement or in the military or a veteran, you're going to get 30% off. Now, I think we were supposed to stop this. I'm not stopping it, period. So, if you're a listener to this program and you're in any of those categories, I want you to sign up as quickly as you can. 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. Now, if you're like me and you haven't done any of those things or you're not doing any of those things, I'm giving you 10% off. So rather than paying $99 a year, you'll pay $89 a year. Now, notice something different between us and cable and satellite. That's for the entire year, 12 months, hundreds of episodes. That's pretty darn good, considering all that goes into it. So please check us out, 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV, or go to crtv.com. And I know you're going to love it. If you love your country, you're going to love this, because that's what we're all about. Now, I want to get back to Sesame Street. As I said, I offered to put a consortium together to buy it. But apparently somebody else already did. As pointed out in Investors Business Daily, Sesame Street isn't even technically a PBS show anymore. In 2015, it signed a 5-year deal with HBO, which gets exclusive rights to air new episodes for 9 months on its premium cable network, after which the programs can then be shown on PBS. Now think about that. The deal lets Sesame Workshop create twice as many episodes as it could on PBS, as well as a spin-off program. So at the time, Sesame Street co-founder Joan Gans Cooney said that the changing media landscape meant that in order to fund our nonprofit mission with a sustainable business model, Sesame Workshop must recognize these changes and adapt to the times. So it's not even purely a public TV deal. And these executives are making a fortune. And the goofball that does the writing and Sesame and Big Bird, guy's making millions. If anything, the HBO deal shows how programs like Sesame Street can do better without government funding than with it. But what about the public broadcasting service? Surely if Trump cuts funding to the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, then all those PBS stations that eventually get to air Sesame Street will go dark, leaving people who can't afford cable unable to watch it, right? Wrong. Only about 15% of PBS's budget comes from you, the American taxpayer, funding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Most of its revenue comes from support by individuals, corporate underwriters, and private grants, as well as state and local support. So this is another scam. It's another scam. Well, I like what's on PBS. Good, then cough up more donations. Cough up more donations. It's a scam. Never heard of people making $2.2 million at a charity. It's not even a charity anymore. It's HBO. It's HBO. That's what it is. Now it's HBO, and after 9 months, they throw some to PBS. Why are we subsidizing HBO, in effect? Oh, well, Mark, you just don't understand. You want people to starve under the Meals on Wheels program, and you want little kids to miss Sesame Street. And by the way, all right, now what I'm going to say is going to seem provocative, but the research shows otherwise. What the hell do you learn from Big Bird, really? What do you learn? Your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s? That's what we're supposed... I mean, we're going broke funding public schools. Can't they teach ABCs and 1, 2, 3s? What else are they teaching? Your little kid how to go to the toilet? Well, that's not up to Big Bird. That's up to you. Well, what else are you teaching your kid with Big Bird? Seriously. I don't... Well, we like Big Bird. We like Big Bird. Do you like... Yes, Michelle Obama's healthy eating. Remember that one? She was on there. So it does propaganda, too. I can give you Michelle Obama's healthy eating. Take a piece of cardboard, put some mustard on it, and eat it. And I'm sure Barack Milhouse Benito Obama in Tahiti is going to be watching a strict diet there. Low sugar, low salt, all that kinds of stuff. Anyway, CNN, I do have an idea. Rather than chasing windmills, why don't you go to Tahiti? A couple of you guys and gals, you might actually enjoy yourselves. No, don't pay for prostitutes. That's not good. Anyway, go to Tahiti and find out what Milhouse is up to. Seriously. By the way, who wants to stay a month in Tahiti? Don't you go nuts after a while? Oh, it looks great. Oh, it looks great. Oh, it looks great. Then what? Then what? Yes. You know, I despise Jimmy Carter. I despise Jimmy Carter, but at least when the guy leaves the presidency, he at least goes through the motions, right? Habitat for Humanity. Right? Something like that. Or Bush working with the wounded soldiers and the Gold Star family. Obama, he's calling all his buddies, the billionaires. He's, what do you call that when they're flying over the ocean? That's with the sky kites and all the rest of it. And then he's in Tahiti and his wife, he leaves his wife behind. Where is Michelle, by the way? Do we know where Michelle Obama is, Mr. Producer? I'm just curious. Kite surfing, that's what it is. Yeah. By the way, Sesame Street has announced a new transgender character. Where's the old transgender character? So I'm just thrilled that we keep funding this HBO project, which makes millions and millions of dollars for its executives, for its whatever, for the actors and all the rest, but it's for the children. A new transgender character. Well, what does a transgender character do on Sesame Street? Seriously. How does this play out? I don't know. How does that play out? What, the voice changes from one show to the other? The clothes change from one show to... By the way, may I say, Big Bird? I think Big Bird has transitioned. I think Big Bird has transitioned. I think he's transitioned into something that is asexual. But I could be wrong. I don't watch it anymore. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So here's how this all comes together. I'm getting ready for a pre-taped interview with the Speaker of the House. I'm going through what questions I'm going to ask. I see a Real Clear Politics write-up of a compilation of public reports that was put together by Mark Levin, the talk show host, radio talk show host, and it has very detailed references. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to ask this to Speaker Ryan, and I'm probably going to cut it out because he's going to say, I don't know anything about it, and probably cut it out of the piece that we were going to air. Well, because Speaker Ryan answers the way he does, we leave it in, and that starts this whole thing when it comes to me.
Brett, everything's fine. Everything is fine. You haven't done anything wrong. Just stick with me, brother. Stick with me. Somebody should put me in for the Pulitzer Prize, I think. Or some kind of journalism award. As the... you got Napolitano over there at Fox. He's the senior judicial analyst. I've decided I am the Chief Justice judicial analyst. But that said, seriously, somebody needs to put me in for an award. Don't you think so, folks? Nobody has done a better job of exposing the media now than I. No brag, just fact. And more is going to come. On Monday, they're going to turn their howitzers toward me and you, and we will fight back. Because they're going to be revealed as the frauds that they are. They've already have been. That's why they're upset. Wait a minute, I didn't mean that there's an investigation. Can I prove that there's an investigation? They're talking to themselves now. Which side of this am I supposed to be on? I'm confused. Yes. Do I report this or don't I report this? I know what we'll do. Right-wing conspiracy, like Hillary Clinton. Right-wing conspiracy. Doesn't work that way, boys. That doesn't fly. I want to tell you about AMAC. We had this big Republican win in November. Of course, it shocked the media. It shocked a lot of people. I believe it even shocked the candidate. But it was a wake-up call. It was a wake-up call. And while I don't agree with everything that the president is doing, I agree with a lot that the president is doing. And so we call them as we see them, issue by issue by issue. But I am not one of these guys that just wants to undermine him and sabotage him every step of the way. I'll leave that to other people. Like this clown John Ziegler, who can't hold a job. But that's a whole other issue. One organization has been standing for conservative values all along, and that's AMAC, the conservative alternative to the AARP. AMAC has been fighting for smaller government, entitlement reform, religious freedom from the day it was founded. And while the AARP was busy supporting Obamacare, AMAC was opposing the bill every step of the way. Now, if you're over 50, I urge you to join the conservative army of AMAC members now. I am a member of AMAC. And if you act now, a 5-year membership is only $59. 5-year membership, $59. And I'll tell you something else. AMAC delivers the very best member discounts and benefits to its million-plus members on everything from health insurance to hotels to restaurants. You really need to check it out. Here's where you go. Go to www.amac.us. That's AMAC.us. It's that simple. Or call this toll-free number, 888-262-2006. That's 888-262-2006. Be a part of this growing and important organization that fights for your values year in and year out and provides you with the really best discounts and benefits. Join AMAC now. That's AMAC.us or call 888-262-2006. All right. Let's take a few more calls here. Let us go to David, Kansas City, Missouri, the great KCMO. Go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
I got informed about you by Hannity because I listen to him every day.
He's my buddy.
And since I used to be a Democrat,
yeah,
and I worked for Jimmy Carter,
yeah,
back in the day,
right.
But I've got to tell you that you are a refreshing voice, just like Hannity is.
Thank you.
At telling the truth and just keep it up. There's no way in the world I can express and I just wrote down the number you gave me for the advantage. The other part to AARP. So I'm
yes, AMAC. AMAC is wonderful. Dave, yeah. I want to thank you, my brother, and God bless you. Yeah, people think that because Hannity and I have come at this from different positions, that we're at each other's throats. No, we're not at each other's throats. We're like brothers. And we've had our debates, and they're quite friendly. They're quite friendly. But people can't come between us. Nobody comes between us. That's what family's about. That's what friendship's about. That's what loyalty's all about. We had our differences during the primaries and so forth, but so what? And we come at this a little bit differently, but in the end, I supported Trump because I thought it was absolutely necessary to defeat Hillary, and I've been proven right, as have millions and millions of you, my fellow conservatives who did exactly the same thing. And without you, Trump would not be president today. You don't have to agree with everything Trump does. You don't have to agree with everything that George W. Bush did, or George H.W. Bush did, or Ronald Reagan did, or Richard Nixon did, or Gerald whatever. Whatever. Let us go to Rachel, Martinez, California, the great KSFO. Go.
Hi, Mark. Hey, my grandmother was on that Meals and Wheels when she was about 97 years old, and I took her off. It's absolute crap.
Oh, really?
They should stop funding it. I don't know how much of it is government funded or privately funded, but just like PBS, they should check to see what the salaries are for those people. It's they would be doing the elderly a favor if they got rid of it. It is absolute crap.
Oh, my God. Well, okay, I'll pass that along. But a lot of people are fed through it, and particularly the volunteers, the worker bees work very hard. The vast majority of it is not funded by the government, even though the media would have you believe otherwise. Media would have you believe a lot of things that aren't true. Thank you for your call. I shall return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Look, folks, I don't want to debate Wheels on Meals. I don't have any problem with Wheels on Meals. I'm sure truthfully, I'm sure it's a wonderful program and a necessary program. The only issue for me is there's about 15% of it is funded by the federal government, and the fact of the matter is, that's not correct. 3.3% of it is funded in the program that they want to take out. The rest of the funding through a different part of HUD continues. So we just step up and we donate more of those who support it, and it'll be taken care of. But, these things are looked at in a vacuum. The fact of the matter is these things add up, and we have trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. And we're all going to be eating off of Meals on Wheels if this keeps up. You can't destroy a society. Now, we were just talking about Hannity briefly. Somebody called in and CNN, and it just happens that I have a piece here about the two, and I want to mention it to you. And it's in Breitbart by Matthew Boyle. And the attack is on Sean Hannity at CNN. CNN is a disreputable pretend news outlet. They had their person, Donna Brazile, who was feeding questions, to the Democrats and so forth. All this goes on, CNN behind the scenes. If we only knew everything, it would be so obvious. But they report they're attacking Fox News' Sean Hannity, smearing his reputation with a phony story about him allegedly pointing a gun at liberal Fox News contributor Juan Williams. I saw this earlier today somewhere else, too. I guess it was CNN. Dylan Byers, one of the media writers at CNN, who works for media industry defender Brian Stetler. Oh, the dummy twins. Printed a story on Thursday alleging, quote, last year, after ending one of his many spirited on-air arguments with liberal contributor Juan Williams, Hannity pulled out a gun and pointed it directly at Williams. Byers cited 3 sources with knowledge of the incident to make the claim. I happen to know that Juan Williams and Hannity are friends, by the way. I don't know how Hannity does it, but there you have it. Let's see. He even turned on the laser sight, causing a red dot to bob around on Juan Williams' body, Byers wrote, adding in parentheses, quote, Hannity was just showing off, the sources said, but the unforeseen off-camera antic clearly disturbed Williams and others on the set, unquote. Byers added in the next paragraph, another CNN, this guy Byers, that the alleged incident was investigated and was determined nothing had happened. For the record, this is a quote, Hannity's colleagues brought the Williams incident to the attention of Fox News executives, though it's not clear whether anything came of it, Byers wrote. I mean, these are the guys reporting on Russia and Trump. I mean, this is the whole... And then when you call them out, do you have proof? Proof of what? You wrote the damn story. The sources said it went to Bill Shine, the network's co-president and a longtime Fox News executive who's Hannity's longtime friend and former producer. A Fox News spokesperson said the incident was referred to legal and human resources departments, unquote. Byers buried deep in the story the actual quotes from Fox News itself and Hannity and Williams themselves. All of them are saying, the incident is being way overblown by CNN. Well, imagine that, which is one of Fox's competitors and is lagging behind Fox in the ratings and is constantly under fire for printing fake news stories like this one. Quote, Sean Hannity has been trained in firearm safety since he was 11 years old and has a license to carry a gun in 5 states, including New York, Fox News said in its statement. The situation was thoroughly investigated, and it was found that no one was put in any danger. Hannity himself says that CNN's interpretation of events is outright false reporting. Imagine that. While discussing the issue of firearms, I showed my good friend Juan Williams my unloaded firearm in a professional and safe manner for educational purposes only, Hannity said. Every precautionary procedure that I'd been trained in since the age of 11 was followed. I've had a concealed carry permit in 5 states for all my adult life. Any other interpretation of this is outright false reporting. Now, the kicker is Williams himself, well, he says the whole thing is being blown out of proportion. Quote, "This incident is being sensationalized. Everything was under total control throughout, and I never felt like I was put in harm's way," Williams said, according to the CNN report. "It was clear that Sean put my safety and security above all else, and we continue to be great friends." So this is a nothing burger. This is another phony, fraudulent, fake story by a phony, fraudulent, fake network trying to take down another host. Trying to take... This Brian Stetler guy is really a loathsome guy. He really is a hack. He's like 31 or 32. He looks all of 78. No offense. But he really is a dumb guy who is ideologically motivated. I mean, a really dumb guy. And so they give him a Sunday show. And of course he's a dumb guy. He earned his creds at the New York Slimes. So he's got all the bucket list stuff going on. Next thing you know, he'll be on the Rachel Maddow show. But I've had my own dealings with this guy. He's a gotcha guy. He's not interested in news or anything of the sort. And he brings down CNN like all the rest of them. And, of course, Sean is tweeting out, CNN is as hysterical and insane as Rachel Maddow. It's a good one. I like that one. Or this one. Oh, by the way, I never did karate in my life. Another lie. Let's see. So naturally, according to CNN, the network president, Donald Trump, has called very fake news. Learning self-defense and properly and safely handling a firearm in a way that makes nobody feel unsafe is now a bad thing. Even though both of the subjects of the story, Hannity and Williams, have challenged the report, Dylan Byers is publicly standing by his report. "I stand by my reporting, Juan, every word, 110%, he tweeted out. "I stand by my reporting, Sean," he tweeted out. Hannity mocked Byers at CNN for standing by the fake news report. He tweeted, "Fake news hack." Of course you do. Laugh out loud. It's not true unless you're calling me and Juan liars. In other words, the two people involved, who are friends, say this isn't how it happened. But CNN's standing by its sources and its story. I'm waiting, again, for CNN to send its intrepid investigative reporters to Tahiti. They see what Barack Milhouse Benito Obama is up to. And by the way, where's Michelle? Is she in the witness protection program? Where is she lately? She tending some organic garden? I don't know where she is. Hannity, I have years of tape talking about gun safety. Years. It's all too interesting that this latest hit from CNN comes as Hannity makes headway in exposing the media establishment that Stetler and Byers regularly defend. On Wednesday night on his Fox News program, Hannity detailed how NBC News is on a corporate jihad against President Donald Trump. Look, I know this for a fact. These people are thin-skinned, the media. They do try to harm people and ruin their reputations and smear them. I know this for a fact. And so in that regard, there's no debating that. All right. Let's take a call. Bob, Neptune, New Jersey, the great WABC. Go.
Yeah, hello, Mark. I agree you should get the Pulitzer Prize probably for investigative journalism because you're the only one doing any investigating.
Well, I've investigated the journalists. I agree. I should get the Pulitzer Prize.
Yes, yes. I wanted to comment about the judge with the restraining order, and I feel what...
Which one, the kook in Hawaii or the kook in Maryland?
Well, actually, both of them, and the ones before them also on the prior order. It's like they're anticipating discrimination before it happens. They're assuming that the administration has the intent to discriminate against people rather than good intents to protect the nation. And that is not appropriate, as you know.
No, it's not appropriate, and these judges have done a grave disservice to the country, to the Constitution, and to the judiciary. And they are political hacks dressed up in black robes. And I'll tell you this, if I were a litigant and turns out that my case was going before one of these judges, I would absolutely ask for the court these judges to recuse themselves, that they do not have the professional temperament to serve in the court. I would definitely file that. Whatever the court does, it's up to the court. But I would say, you know what? That ruling was such an abomination and so political, I don't believe I can get a fair hearing here, so I want to go to another court. That's what strong, smart, courageous lawyers would do. All right, my friend. I obviously have dazzled you with my brilliance. I appreciate it. Let's take another call. Let us go to Mel, Naples, Florida, the great WFSX. How are you, sir?
Hey, Mark. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes,
Listen,
sir.
I am a millennial. I am black. I work in a liberally dominated profession that seeks to indoctrinate our children with liberal beliefs. I do not fit their stereotype because I am a strong conservative because of people like you.
Well, God bless you, man. That means you're strong. I mean, it really takes strength.
Well, I'm no holds barred because I'm going to tell you. You want an example of fake news? I watch CNN every now and then, and I actually get disgusted. They ran a story about a week ago about Trump rallies becoming violent, the ones about the Trump supporters. Mm-hmm. But if you look in detail of those stories, that's what they said, Trump rallies turn violent. But the people who are violent are radicalized, liberal, white privileged, college Ivy League kids like Tim Kaine's son.
Yeah,
they ran a
small
snippet story about this kid. Now, can you imagine if Donald Trump's kid did that? Lord. Now, with that being said, I'll be real quick. I want all your listeners to listen up. We have got to confront these liars for what they are and who they are. And guys, stop apologizing for people brand new racists. Call them what they are. They're liars. They're hypocrites. Stop trying to defend and show that you're not something, because that's their tactic. Stand up to the bully, and the bully is the media. The bully is the leftist, liberal propaganda. They have infected a lot of communities that I grew up in, and they keep infecting us. Donald Trump is the only president that I've ever seen that is willing to help out the HBCUs, willing to go into Chicago and fix all of that hot mess that's going on in there. And then they still have people like Samuel Jackson questioning Dr. Ben Carson for using the same narrative that Barack Obama used. Ben Carson is a descendant of slaves. Barack Obama has no black American ancestry whatsoever. And it pisses me off when we are so passive, where we will use the term undocumented immigrant. Conservatives, stop using the term undocumented immigrants when you're on these air shows. Call these people what they are, illegal aliens. Stop using leftist terms. Stand up, people, and go into CNN and do opinion editorials. Because if they're not going to show you, write your opinion editorials, then that's going to show how fake they are. Guys, stand up.
Man, you're good, Mel. I'll tell you what, don't hang up. I want to give you a one-year subscription to CRTV. Mel is terrific. I could listen to him all night. By the way, Independence Day, July 4th. Rediscovering Americanism. My best book. You don't know it yet because you don't have access to it. But it is my best book, and I've written some damn good books, let's be honest. But this is my best book, Rediscovering Americanism, and I think the timing is perfect. And it just so happens we're releasing it on Independence Day, July 4th. And the subtitle is In the Tyranny of Progressivism. Check it out on Amazon.com. Mr. Producer, why don't you pop it up on our social sites, if you will. And by the way, the cover's not so bad either. Check out that cover. The publisher keeps insisting on putting me on the cover. So finally I agreed. And I think the photograph really does describe the contents of the book in some respect. You'll see what I mean when you look at it. So you can get it on Amazon.com, right? They're already discounting it. How do they discount a book that hasn't even been printed yet? But what can I tell you? It is completed. And you can jump in there now. Rediscovering Americanism. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I was thinking during the break. I do that a lot, by the way. Where are all the new Russia and Trump stories since my broadcast 2 Thursdays ago? Where are all the new Russia and Trump stories? The only stories have been his tweeting and these committee hearings, which we called for as well, which I believe we helped trigger. Where are all the new leaks on more of the Trump personnel and so forth? Have you noticed? Am I wrong about this, Rich? I don't think there have been any. I haven't found any. Perhaps Brian Steltler over there will find some for us, or his sidekick, Dylan, whatever their names are. But seriously, I haven't seen any Russia-Trump stories, collusion. In fact, you see the opposite now. No, we didn't mean there's collusion. We meant there isn't collusion. Well, what did you mean? We don't know. We're result-oriented. We're the Praetorian Guard. We're progressives. We got to figure this one out. Let us go to Daniel, Sunnyvale, California. The great KSFO. I lived in Sunnyvale, California for about a year, right off Lawrence Expressway, on a little street called Waxwing. Do you know where that is, sir?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I can pull up your permit history if you've ever pulled a permit over there.
Can they? Did they put a little monument to me there?
Probably not. There's a bunch of libs over there.
Oh, really? When I was over there, they were fairly solid. But, things change.
Yeah.
How may I help me?
Before I get to my point, I want to let you know that I did what you suggested, and I tried Stan's Donuts. And to use your word, they are unbelievable.
What did I tell you?
They are.
What I tell you, I get nothing out of this, and I don't want anything out of this. The fact of the matter is Stan's Donuts. Now, look what you did. I can't even get to Stan's Donuts, and now I'm thinking about it again.
Hey, sorry about that.
They are unbelievable. Anyway, go right ahead.
Well, the caller that you had previously, Mill, I think he hit the nail right on the head. We do need to stand up to these liberals and the way they talk. We do need to call it what it is. It is illegal immigration and illegal immigrants. And speaking on that, and I know you spoke on this earlier in the week, but I just don't understand, and I was going to ask you, because you're a lot smarter than I am, how is it that if you can quote U.S. Codes 1182, 1101, and the president has the power...
All right, we got to run. I apologize. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin doesn't just read the news, he makes the news. Call the Mark Levin Show now at 877-381-3811.
By the way, don't forget, there's a great fiction out there, The Shroud Conspiracy by John Heybush. This is his first book, and it's a blockbuster already. The Shroud Conspiracy, it's a novel. And it's absolutely brilliant thriller. And John, you may have heard him on my show before. He's executive director of the Reagan Library and Foundation. And it's just spectacular. I don't read fiction books, but I read this book. And he told me, don't give it away, so I'm not going to give it away. But you can guess the central theme. But it brings faith and science and adventure and travel all over the world together. So if you're looking for a book to take your mind off of what's going on, and also that's very intriguing and bracing and certainly entertaining, it's The Shroud Conspiracy by John Heybush. Let's put that on my websites too, Mr. Producer, on my social sites, so people have easy access to it on Amazon. If you order it today, you'll get it on Monday. So, or if you can go to Barnes & Noble, any major bookstore, and get it right now, tonight, or get it tomorrow. And I want to strongly encourage you to do it. It is a great book. Some people have compared it to Dave Brown's books. Others have compared it to Indiana Jones-style books. It really is a combination of those things. And it's just spectacular. So I think you'll enjoy it very much. ZipRecruiter can help the best talent to your business. Successful businesses hire great people, and ZipRecruiter makes it easy for you by providing hassle-free job postings and easy candidate screenings. And with ZipRecruiter.com, You can post your job to 200-plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. ZipRecruiter has been used by Fortune 100 companies and hundreds of thousands of small and medium-sized businesses. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Quickly screen candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Just post once and watch your qualified candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. For the perfect hire, you need to be on all the top job sites, and now you can with ZipRecruiter. And right now, for you, my beloved audience, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free, by going to ZipRecruiter.com/Levin. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Levin. One more time to try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Levin, Levin. It's a terrific service. Wonderful sponsor. I think you'll like it a lot. Mr. Producer, let's get cut, 9 ready. Congressman from Florida, he's terrific, by the way, Ron DeSantis. I'm a big fan of his. There was a hearing yesterday involving Judge Alex Kaczynski, who I mentioned to you earlier, of the Ninth Circuit Court of Schlemiels. And Alex Kaczynski, when he became a circuit judge, I believe he was 32 or 33, I actually had to sign off on him before it went to President Reagan. But that said, DeSantis is obviously honing in, drilling down, and doing exactly the right thing. I want you to hear this exchange from yesterday. Cut 9, go.
What are the checks on the courts as you understand the Constitution? I mean, Congress can pass a statute. Maybe its president signs it. It goes beyond Congress's authority. You guys, or infringes the Bill of Rights. You guys can have a case before you. You can effectively check the Congress through a concrete case. You guys get it wrong. Your district court gets it wrong. Supreme Court gets it just grievously wrong. How do the American people check bad court decisions?
Well, if I may say so, when the Supreme Court speaks, by that gets it right. If the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution, that's what the Constitution says. That's the way our system works.
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, I think if you look at cases from like the Dred Scott decision in other states, courts are not infallible. And I think you're a very smart guy. I like a lot of your opinions, and I think you're very principled, but I really disagree with that. This is not speaking ex cathedra from, this building over here. They do get it wrong, and I guess your argument to me is that there is no recourse for the Supreme Court. 5-4 decision, even if we think it's way outside what the Constitution is, there's no mechanism for us to check that, correct?
Well, yes, we can amend the Constitution.
Yeah, well, I wish. But the Constitution has been perverted. The courts have seized authority. And so the checks and balances are broken. And more than that, this word virtue means everything. Without virtue, you cannot have a republic. Point in fact, that judge that ruled, the district court judge in Seattle, about a month ago, he lacked virtue. The 3 judges on the panel in the Ninth Circuit, they lacked virtue. The judge in Hawaii and the other one in Maryland, they lack virtue. If judges lack virtue, if a president lacks virtue, if senators and congressmen lack virtue, there's no saving a republic, folks. Now, Kaczynski knows, but he obviously disagrees about Article 5 in Convention of States. The people do have recourse, a constitutional, legitimate, civil, rational recourse that embraces the entire body politic. But he doesn't mention it. I don't know any judge who likes it. Because whether you're an originalist or an activist, you like the power of the courts. Then you like to write about it. And so this is a problem. But of course there's recourse. And that's there's a second recourse too. And I've written about it before. It's true. Congress has the power to take jurisdiction away from the lower courts because Congress creates the lower courts. I don't encourage Congress doing this all the time, but I would encourage Congress to do it from time to time, certainly once. For instance, this is a prime example. What the courts have now done on the president's executive order. And trust me, if Congress even came close to doing that, they would get the attention of the activists on the courts, and they would have to be a little bit more careful about what they're doing. But right now, you basically heard what Kaczynski said, there's no recourse. If, in fact, you live within the progressive box that's been built for us. I refuse to live in that box. I can read the Constitution as well as anybody else. There's an Article 5 there. Every bit as there's an Article 1, 2, 3, 4. It's there. Every bit as there is a Bill of Rights. It's there. Why should we ignore it? Ignore it to our own detriment. What's the point of that? So, in any event, thought you'd want to hear that. Let's take a couple more calls. Let us go to Daniel, Farmington, Michigan, Sirius Satellite. How are you, sir?
Good, Mr. Levin. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I'll try to be real brief here. Long story short, I kind of discovered you a little bit over a year ago, and through the waning years of the Obama administration, I kind of found myself disagreeing with a lot of the things that were going on, and I'd get into some conversations or overhear some people discussing some things, and I felt like I didn't quite have the background or the knowledge to kind of defend my positions. And I just wanted to say, since I've been listening to you, I listen to Andrew Wilkow and Sean Hannity during work, and you're on the radio on the way home. And I just want to let you know that you're providing me with the information I need to be able to justify my disagreements, my thoughts, my feelings. It was so hard to try to find information, from a conservative Catholic point of view. Like I say, a lot of these things I don't agree with, and listening to you and following you on Facebook and pointing out articles and things that I felt like I almost have a degree in Mark Levin now, that I can justify my concerns. I'm sorry?
I thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate that.
Well, what brought it to light and why I wanted to give you a call is how you've been getting the blowback with the whole Donald Trump and the wiretapping thing. I just want to let you know that you got a fan out there, and to keep up the good work and keep the faith.
Well, thank you, brother. I'm going to send you a copy of Plunder and Deceit, too. That'll arm you up really good with a lot of information, too. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, we have millions of Levinites, of which I'm deeply blessed. And I know I am. Susan in Pennsylvania on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Yes, Mark. Thank you. I just want to tell you, I really liked when you make me laugh when you imitate Mitch McConnell. But anyway, I'm calling about the fact that you're discussing the government waste with Sesame Street and the other NPR and all of that. And I'm in low-income housing. I'm totally eligible. And I know of the block grants being misused. I know of a small housing authority that the woman who was the manager of took the grants and gave her son the money to start a plumbing business. I know that another apartment, they had advertised that a certain apartment complex was going to get block grants, and when it was in the paper, and then when one of the tenants went and said, when are you going to start working with that grant money, they said, we didn't get any. So the apartment managers have taken the money, and there's not enough oversight from the state, or the people that live in these places don't have the courage or knowledge to report it to the state. The utility allowances, which every tenant's supposed to get. I know of another manager that was recalculating the tenant's rent and contribution, but kind of adding to the $50, so it made it look like they were getting the $50 utility, but they weren't. And I could mention other things, the Meals on Wheels. Another thing I have heard of recently is that Medicaid pays for transportation for people that are enrolled in a methadone clinic, and these methadone clinic is funded all by the government, taxpayer Medicaid money.
I've got to go. And what you're pointing out is so true. It's across the board, hundreds of billions of dollars every single year in horrific waste. Horrific waste. Let me tell you about Tisha, who owed the IRS $14,000. She was in a mess of trouble, and the IRS was aggressively pursuing her. So she called my friends at Optima Tax Relief. That was a smart move. The Optima team quickly protected her, stopped the threats, stopped the aggressive collection actions, and went to work solving her tax problem. Not only did Tisha end up not paying the IRS $14,000, Optima got her a $7,000 refund. You believe that? Case closed. Of course, all outcomes are different. But if you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in some time, you know they're coming for you, right? And don't even think about going it alone. I trust Optima to solve my listeners' tax problems. They're A-plus rated and have resolved over $500 million in tax debt for their clients. Your call and consultation are free and confidential. Call 800-499-6300, 800-499-6300. That's 800-499-6300. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Let's go to Luke, Dallas, Texas, the great WBAP. Go.
Mark, it's an honor to speak with you. I just wanted to thank you because you really turned me on to conservative talk radio probably about 8 years ago. So 8 years ago or so, and I've been listening to you ever since. So thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
I just wanted to point out because I don't think I've really heard anybody discussing this. So beyond all the other issues with this most recent travel ban ruling, the back around the time for Obamacare, the Democrats and Obama, they kept selling us on, it's not a tax, it's not a tax. Well, come Supreme Court time, all of a sudden it was a tax, and that wasn't even mentioned when they were discussing the case, that they had tried to sell it as not a tax. Well, now here we go with Trump, and all of a sudden what he said in the past makes this big difference in today's ruling.
That is a great point. And that just further underscores the politicization of the judiciary. And if the judiciary is politicized, then there's no hope for upholding the rule of law. And they can talk about judicial review and judicial independence all they want, but when judges become politicians, then they ought to be treated like politicians. Anyway, my friend, I appreciate your call. It's an excellent point. And again, I want you to check out the argument I have in the Liberty Amendments, at least when it comes to the Supreme Court, for term limiting Supreme Court justices, and also empowering Congress and the state legislatures, 3/5 of both houses of Congress or 3/5 of the state legislatures having the power to overturn a Supreme Court decision within 2 years, not to rewrite it, not to amend it, but to kill it. There's no reason why one justice in so many cases, 1 out of 9, 5-4 decisions, and so forth, should have such powerful sway over the entirety of the country. To me, it's important to hear what they have to say and for them to rule, but in the end, I think the broader body politic. Not majoritarianism, not populism, republicanism. All right, folks, it's Friday in honor of you, my listeners and the American people. Ray Charles, check out Rediscovering Americanism at Amazon, folks. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. Good night, Spritey. Good night, Griffey. Good night, Pepsi. Good night, Smokey. Good night, Zelda, our beautiful dogs. Get Al-Qaeda. Get the Taliban. Get ISIS. Get all those damn cockroaches. And I'll see you on Monday, America. I'm Mark Levin.